This was the second quilt I did. I did this for my older daughter, Jade, and I asked her what she would like. She's a very girly little girl. She likes horses and rabbits, and she likes animals, and she likes castles and all the things that very girly little girls like. She just wanted those things in it, but she didn't really quite know how she wanted it, and this is what I came up with. It's done in the same way as the first quilt I did. It's got an airbrushed background on silk. It's a blue colour and it's got pinks in there to give that lovely rosy look to it. I started with the green in the background being slightly darker and airbrushed it so that it was actually lighter as I went to the bottom to give some idea of distance. The grass is all machine embroidered to give the sort of idea of grass by basically doing very tall zigzaggy shapes in different colour threads to give some feeling of grass, and also quilting the whole thing together. All the little figures, the small ones, are done with transfer paints. I've done the same thing with the little deers. They're transfer painted and embroidered onto and applied to the background. The idea of having a mum, dad and a baby was a nice idea. In reality, of course, that's not how it is, but I thought that suited what she would like. This castle is airbrushed onto silk and then it's been applied. Then I have embroidered into it. You can see it's not really like a real castle would look. It probably wouldn't even stand up in reality, but it's a sort of fantasy castle. And this castle's got a front door, which of course castles don't really have, but at the time it seemed appropriate to put it in there. So that again is airbrushed and machine embroidered into. The wooded area is transfer dyed and applied, and then I've embroidered into it quite heavily this time to give the impression of a quite dense wood, and trying to make some of the trees darker in the background to give that idea that you could go into those woods. I've used machine embroidery, embroidering lots of bluebells around the trees. I've used it to hold the trees in place rather than having any dark line round the bottom. It was just a nice way to do it. This is embroidered directly onto the quilt, which had its problems because obviously, as you can imagine, trying to roll up all this quilt in your hands and then machine embroider into the centre. It was quite hard on my hands, and I did find working this thickly quite difficult, and I did avoid doing it in the future. I was in my local market in St Albans and I was just wandering around and looking at some children's toys, and I found this punch needle. I've never actually seen them before. Apparently they're Russian. You punch the thread through with a sort of hook, almost like a rug. And I used white cotton and drew out the bushes, and then I just punched machine embroidery thread through it. And it's very tactile. You want to touch it, you want to stroke it, and it gives it a nice three-dimensional quality. It's funny how sometimes when there's something that you need, it just turns up in life, isn't it? I was just very lucky to find that. The horses were airbrushed onto silk, then they were applied. They're quite big, and so I had to use bondaweb to stick them down before I sewed, which I kind of regret because it takes away the softness that I would have liked, and I never do that now. I don't like that in pieces of work. To get the dapple grey horse, I got lots of little pieces of cotton wool and stuck them down, I think with double-sided sellotape, and airbrushed over him because that gives nice soft edges when you airbrush around it, and that gave the dapple grey look. All the gold on the horses is hand done, and the eyes hand done, and the nose is hand done, and the rest of it is machine embroidered and applied to the background. I think it was worth doing that bit of handwork there because it really finished it quite nicely. And I think if you put a tiny bit of gold into work, it can just give it a more opulent effect. I took drawings from books to get the shape of a horse. I've never drawn a horse in my life before, and I wasn't really sure how to do it. I think they turned out okay in the end. I mean, they're not perfect horses, but they look like horses. And this is my daughter Jade, being a fairy tale princess on her horse in her beautiful gown with gold embroidery. I actually made her a little outfit, which she had for dressing up, and I made her sit on the back of the sofa over it as if she was riding a horse. And I made her sit there for about half an hour. I kept taking photographs till I had one that I thought I could use. But she got a dressing up outfit out of it, so fair's fair, isn't it? here's Lauren, her little sister. She got her own back on her this time. She's a little servant girl, having to look after the dogs and lead the horse and have bare feet. But she does have a very nice dress with gold thread in it, so I don't think many servants really had gold thread in their dresses. Sadly, I never got the face quite as I would like to have done. The first time I did it, it did look quite nice, but not like her. And so I thought I would try and improve it when it was already sewn on, and I got the airbrush and tried to alter it. And that was a bit of a mistake, so she has a rather dark look around her eyes because I've gone over it. And, well, maybe servants do look like that, so maybe it's appropriate. And here are two little dogs, because you always seem to see in these medieval paintings greyhounds. And they are, I mean, it's lovely to put a bit of white in because it brings out the other colours. They're very graceful looking creatures when they're like that. I thought it would be quite nice to have those in there and put some decorative collars on them. I was very lucky with this quilt. It did get a lot of attention. I did win winner in my category at the National Patchwork Championships. It was also a runner-up in the Hertfordshire Visual Arts in Hertfordshire, which was really nice. And I was also very lucky to have it on the cover of the Independent Patchworker. So I did manage to achieve an award for both daughters.